Alrighty, I am here to do my final assignment. I'm going to be looking at my phone, but that's just because I took a picture of the questions just a moment ago, so I'd be able to read them without having to constantly move back and forth. So hopefully you understand. I don't have the greatest memory in the world. I just wanted to be able to answer them concisely and quickly. Thank you. What was my research question and how did I arrive at it? My research question was, why do hospitals bill differently for each... Why do each hospital bill differently for the same sort of procedures and medical practices? The reason I decided to do this was because I have actually experienced frustration with this many times before. I've been to many different hospitals, and usually when you're pushed in a situation where you have a medical condition such as mine, you end up having to go to hospitals that are tinier in lower places. Like, one time I had to go to one in Wee, California. One time I had to go to one in my hometown of McCall. And usually those places tend to charge more because, what are you going to do? It's not like I can say no. The next hospital is like 2 hours away. And it's just sickening and unfair, and it's aggravating. And I personally have paid like, what, 10 to 20,000 in medical debt just myself over my lifetime, and I've only had to do this for like the past 3-4 years ish. It's something that personally I have been frustrated about quite a bit, and I've wanted to bring into light. So I guess that because of that I also have a little bit of a bias, but I digress. What was my thesis and why did I settle on this final form? I decided that I needed to be as objective as humanly possible, even though I am very much biased in the situation. Like I said before, I needed to try and be objective as possible. So I decided to make the essay with the thesis of how did this start, because even I didn't really know why it started when I first started this, and I was very much curious to know why they do it, and I tried my best to give some examples of possible reasons why hospitals might do this for a logical reason, and how to survive after it's done. And the reason I decided to put a lot of emphasis on that one was because it's rough being in medical debt, especially when you're in the lower levels of income, like I and or my family have been most of our lives. It's harder to make it through. Me personally, as soon as I got out of the hospital, which I was in for like a month when I first got my disease, I don't think I would have financially survived if I hadn't saved up a little bit of money through paid time off, because I was supposed to go on a vacation, and I had gotten sick like immediately the day I was supposed to go. So, yeah, it's something that not a lot of people like talking about, because debt's something more or less most people in the lower echelon tend to just be okay with. But it's something that we really should try and find a way around, because it's disgusting. It's hard, it's disgusting, and it's just not right. It's just not. What are the major points that I used to support my thesis? Okay, I'll try not to blabber. I realize... I'll just shut up. The major points of my thesis were, as I said before, I wanted to make sure to talk about how it had started, because there was actually a pretty interesting reason for it originally, why they might be doing it, because logically not all of the people are evil. Sometimes they actually have to do it. And how do you survive after it's done? How do you manage through that debt? And those seem like the most interesting ones. Trying my best to deviate as much of the... Trying not to be... How do I put this? I'm trying to find the word here. Trying not to be objective. I'm trying to be as objective as humanly possible, not biased. And I believe I accomplished that successfully. What was the best evidence you found in your research to support your thesis? What is your best evidence? I think the best evidence I've found is just so many... There were quite a few articles I found that talked about, excuse me. My apologies. There were quite a few articles that I found that talked about how charge masters had come around and how the thing is I didn't put all of them in my essay, but there were several articles I had found about what the situation was for certain people. I had read that in states like Texas, that some of the people were getting charged like $200 for a simple shot, whereas people in, like, I don't know, 2 cities over were getting charged 10. It's things like that. It helped me find the evidence I needed to not just reaffirm my own biases, but help me understand that this really is a problem that's affecting a lot of people, not just me. When creating this essay, I had to come to terms with the fact that there are some logical reasons, but not completely. That's at least what I believed helped the most for the evidence in this essay. What was your toughest opposing argument and why? How did you give a rebuttal to this argument? I guess the toughest argument I had was that there is some logical reasons that they do this, because like I've said before, I am completely biased on this, and it was very difficult for me to try and think of ways that they would have to do this that make sense and, are ethically okay. But I tried my best to come up with a couple. Medical equipment is expensive, and the bigger hospitals need to go through them faster. Higher paid doctors usually need to pay more. More skilled doctors require higher pay so they can, get them to stay and not go to different hospitals. But I completely double back on that in the last little bit of that paragraph by pointing out that I personally believe that the reason they do it is greed, mostly. There's probably no reason that most of them need to do it, and they only do it because they want to make more money, and they know that hospitals are one of the few amenities in the world where you don't really get the option to say, no, I don't want to, or nah, I'd rather go somewhere else. Usually you're in an emergency, and when that happens, what are you supposed to do? You just sort of do it. You take what you get, even if it's the most expensive thing in the world. If it's very upsetting, and it's hard because there's no amount of explanation that can describe the amount of fear you feel going to the hospital for anything, especially when you have chronic diseases. My apologies. Because you could have to go for literally any reason, any time, and you don't know whether this hospital specifically is going to be nice and charge less for the things that you need, or because you needed a quick checkup to make sure everything's going okay, this hospital is going to charge 3 times as much, and because you were you needed it right then because you have a chronic disease, there's nothing you can do about it. It was very, very hard to come up with logical reasons and not just spout out about how I thought it was complete and utter garbage, but I did what I could. Yeah. What was your most helpful source and why? Gale. Easily Gale. Like, I had quite a few online sources, but they were very vague ones. But Gale actually had some really interesting articles that I was able to use. Now, I will say this. Gale's search methods are complete and utter trash. Like, Gale needs to fix their searching algorithm because it is bad. You can... Sometimes you'll find the thing you're looking for by using a slightly different word, or it's just weird. It was very hard to find some of the articles I needed because I needed to just like sift through by using different adjectives and things like that. But all in all, I did manage to find enough that I was able to create a pretty interesting essay with some interesting points as far as I could tell. Did your view change over the course of the research process? Why and why not? No, my view does not change, not even a little. Because although I tried my best to do as much research as I could and give a very logical argument about why they might be doing this, respectively, I can't help but always feel very bitter and very hated toward this very specific situation. I've lived and I'm still currently living in this. It's not something that I specifically enjoy or have ever enjoyed. Like I've said, I've spent the last 4.5 years of my life in debt for something that wasn't even my fault. It's like losing a race and then also getting punched in the face right after. It feels awful. And to figure out later, and I didn't even know this until this year when my friend told me, oh, hey, by the way, some hospitals actually charge less. Really? I mean, I knew some charge less for the insurance, but I didn't know some charge less, period. That's just messed up. I mean, it really puts into perspective that in some people's eyes, you're not a patient. You're not a human. You really are just a piece of meat. A piece of meat that is getting valued as you walk through the door, because the more sick people who are in more of a pinch, we're going to take what they can get no matter what. And this isn't something that a lot of normal people will understand. And I say normal as in healthy, because most people will go to the hospital only every once in a while to get checkups and things like that, maybe a shot for the flu. So when they get charged for something, they really don't pay no mind to it. There's really no need to look into it because you're not going enough to where it matters. But when you have a chronic disease or something massive like that happen and it forces you into a position where you have to keep going to hospitals, it really changes your perspective on it. It makes you start to see it in a brand new light, which is not very good. I'm going to stop talking about this now because, to tell the truth, if given the opportunity, I could probably talk about this for hours and just go on and on and on about how frustrating this is. But I'd like to keep this recording as succinct as possible, and I'm already almost 12 minutes. So thank you for taking your time to listen to and watch this. I hope you have a wonderful day, and thank you for letting me participate in this course. Peace.